Well, it's feeding time now, again. Oh, no, I'm not talking about me. I wish I was, but I won't be eating for another hour or two, I expect. Or whenever Elizabeth sees fit, I suppose. If she can take time out of her busy makeup and hair washing and nail polishing schedule, that is. She's lucky she has any hair left, the amount of chemicals she puts in it. I used to spend a lot of time working out here in my young days. It didn't become beautiful for nothing, you know. Best things in life come through struggle, as they say. Many memories in this garden. My daughter told us she was pregnant in this garden, right down there, at the bench underneath the oak tree. Some of the trees out here are 30, maybe 40 years old, almost as old as me. I decided a long time ago that my children would have trees in this garden. See, I know that once they get old, you have to let them off the reins to go and live their lives and be free. But their trees will stay here, rooted down. I sit out here on a summer's day with a cup of tea and, well, that big oak tree by the bench is now called Julie, and the one next to it is called Neil, after my son. Well, maybe in my daughter's case, we let her off the reins a little too soon regarding the pregnancy and stuff, but it's all worked out in the end. I have my own tree here as well. The ash tree by the front gate is my tree. I put old Harry at the front gate to guard over everything, I suppose. That sounds kind of silly now. I have nothing much to guard anymore. Well, maybe the grandkids when they visit. I have a picture of them inside on the mantelpiece. I don't know when Julie and Dan are bringing them next. Only reason we got the cats in the first place was the arrival of the grandkids. Well, I don't know if that's the exact reason. There could have been many reasons, I suppose, but I think it was certainly the catalyst. Catalyst. Elizabeth decided that we should get a couple of cats so that when the grandkids come, they could play with them. We have a big garden, so I suggested why not get a football. Don't be silly, Harry, you and your football. I suggested a swing, maybe. It would get me out into the garden again to assemble it and then eventually play with it. And it would look lovely there between Julie and Neil. Oh no, Harry, they're too dangerous, they'll fall and break their necks. Right then, love, let's get a pair of cats. Dirty little balls of fluff that have to be taken care of day in, day out, food, milk and what have you. Sharp claws on the buggers too, more dangerous to a kid than a football is anyway. They say a cat's meant to clean itself. You'd have never believed that with the smell of these two dirty fucking things. Elizabeth loved them like they were her kids. She used to let them lick her fingers. Oh, Jesus, she cooked my food with those fingers. I couldn't eat properly for a while after I noticed that, and to be honest, the thought still makes me shudder. I even used to pay for a takeaway when the little ones were over. I couldn't have them eating my wife's cooking. Their immune system, or whatever it's called, is not as developed as mine. But the worst thing about these cats were their names. They couldn't be called Blackie or Scruffy or some other pet name, no. I don't know, a name like Towser. On the farmhouse when I was a kid, we used to have a cat called Towser. Father said it was good for the vermin. All I seen him do was sit in the barn rafters, lazy thing, scaring the birds away. But Father loved him. Anyway, the names of my wife's cats were Tom and Jerry. Can you believe that? Tom and Jerry, after a couple of cartoon characters. She said the kids will be able to relate with them better if they have a familiar sounding name. Toddlers relating with a cat. Jesus Christ, I still can't work out what she was thinking. Once we got the two dirty fluff balls, it became my duty to feed them. Morning as soon as I get up, afternoon before I have my dinner, and finally at roughly 7:45 p.m. every night. Why do I know the exact time, you might ask? Well, it just so happens that my wife, from within the ensuite or wherever, would screech at me to feed the cats just when I was sitting down in front of the TV about to watch the football. Her knack of timing veered on the supernatural. The teams would be lining up. The referee would put his whistle to his lips and I'd put my cup of tea to mine. And before you can shout, "Come on, Arsenal!" she'd crack the whip. Out I'd go to feed the things, and by the time I'm in again, my tea's gone cold, and even worse, if Van Persie's playing, I've missed a goal. Planes fascinate me. I used to pay no heed to planes. Well, no more heed than usual. But when I feed the cats out here, I used to really notice the planes then. I'd be outside putting milk into their bowl, and I'd hear the engine miles and miles above. Once, I got distracted, staring into the sky, and I spilled some milk on one of them. Tom or Jerry, what's the difference? Later that evening, I saw him again, and he still had some of the milk on his ear. And they say that cats clean themselves, do they? See, a plane to me is not just a method of travel for the body. It's a transportation device for both body and mind. I've never seen a psychiatrist, but I've come to this conclusion after many years of consideration. When I was a kid, I used to love birds. I still do. I used to like to imagine what a bird felt like, flying in the sky, free. I had a great imagination. I hang lots of bird feeders around my garden. I have quite a few old bird houses too. I used to build them in my spare time, kind of like a hobby. One morning, as I sat in the living room with a cup of tea, my eye was caught by the beautiful sight of a little robin pecking away at the breadcrumbs in a bird feeder. A small, lovely little thing. Oh, if ever something could distract me from a repeat of Newcastle United versus Liverpool, it was that. I stared out the window until my tea went cold. It was a moment of beauty, an example of something beautiful that can occur every day but still seems rare all the same. At least that's how I feel. My wife demonstrated the insignificance of the moment for her when she, right on cue, screeched at me to feed the two fluff balls. In the same instant, the robin, as if alerted too by this strange, animalistic warble, flew away. The robin and I had something in common, I thought. Only he could do something about it. He could fly away. I stood outside and I looked at the cat's empty bowl as I held a 2-litre carton of milk in my hand. I looked at the bowl and I noticed for the first time that there was writing on the side of it. Be happy. Tom and Jerry stared up at me. It was like they were mocking me somehow, I don't know. They probably just wanted their milk. But I stared back a deathly stare. Another thing they say about cats, when you catch a cat looking at you, staring at you, as they often do, they're really looking at you and thinking about killing you. Does that surprise you? I read it in a book somewhere, and it certainly makes sense to me. Well, one thing's for sure, I wasn't going to be intimidated by these two potential killers. I slowly opened the milk carton, and I drank the whole thing. Cats. Let them starve. Of course, they didn't starve for long, though. The following morning, I sat drinking my tea. I didn't bother with the TV. I stared out at the vast array of birds that had now come to visit my garden. All sorts of birds. Blackbirds, starlings, goldfinches, sparrows, all lovely little birds. Oh, the grandkids would love them. They'd be fascinated. The thought of my grandkids being encapsulated by these birds stuck in my head for a few moments, and if my wife had seen the rarity of my smiling face, she would surely have fainted with surprise. This smile, however, began to slowly fade away when I realised that the bird I wanted to see the most was not present. The little robin. This absence, I thought, was most strange. Perhaps my wife's shriek had scared him sufficiently enough to make him not come back. But no, that was nonsense. That couldn't be it. Not with all the bird food out there. But maybe all the other birds had eaten all the best bits. I decided to go out and refill the bird feeder anyway, and perhaps while out there in the garden, the robin might reveal itself. I made the ghastly discovery, and it at once knocked the wind out of my sails. Just beneath the tree lay the mauled robin, barely recognisable. A truly awful sight. I'm not ashamed to say I almost cried a tear. And as I turned my head and saw those cats waiting by the back door, this feeling of sadness was immediately replaced with one of anger. My hands clenched into fists as I walked towards those vengeful, hateful cats. My wife came into the living room that evening as I sat in front of the roaring fire. It was the first time I'd seen her that day. Have you seen Tom and Jerry? Not even a how are you, not even a hello, not even an acknowledgement of my existence. Try the Cartoon Network, I told her. It's a shame that one of my best witticisms had to occur in a situation as morbid as that one. The penny finally dropped for her when she smelled the burning fur. They were poisoned, I told her. I found them dead. They must have eaten something that they shouldn't have. I thought it would be better to cremate them, the same way her own mother had been cremated. I liked how I'd worded it. She didn't suspect me. After all, I'm kind of used to these matters. I told a similar story to my parents about Towser years previously. She was upset for a while, my wife. Very emotional and vulnerable. I cheered her up, and she's okay now. I decided we could get a dog together. Well, I think she wanted a pet around the house to dote over, and I was certainly through with cats. So now we have a dog. We have the birdhouses in the trees and all the birds that visit, and we seem to have gotten a little bit closer. For a start, she doesn't have to shriek at me anymore regarding feeding times. I like feeding the dog. He isn't like cats anyway. We don't fight over the dog. I let her name him. He's called Simpson, but the grandkids call him Homer.